I got a question for you, Daniel. And it's so as we were leading into this podcast, I was trying to think of what listeners might want to or might be thinking at this moment. And so, with regard to this aspect of enlightenment, people are curious, right? They really are, wanting to understand what that means. So can you just maybe give us a reference point of how is enlightenment? Because you've been at one point you hadn't completed the path of insight, and now you have. So there's a let's call it insight, fully insight awareness stage, and now there's the post stage that you've been in many years. Can you just give us a bit of a comparison on how that looks on a daily basis, like how it's similar or different?
So to most people, I'm going to look pretty ordinary. I mean, I tend to be pretty positive. I have a lot of energy, but that was true in some ways before, not to the same degree. I'm a lot happier now. So it definitely helped reduce some suffering and add some mental clarity and some emotional resilience. There's no question. And I'll to try to bring this down to earth. Okay, I was talking to someone a few days ago, and they had reached some difficult stage of practice. So they had gone through the spiritual high where they were super excited about this app they were using, the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. And they were like, mine had gotten so powerful. And then all of a sudden they felt like they were like disappearing and they couldn't think and like they didn't have control of anything. And then they got terrified. So they went through the high stuff and they got to the difficult stuff. They started freaking out. And they thought they were broken or like they were scared or they were going to lose control or whatever. And they were having a very hard time relating to their fear. And I said, well, let's do an exercise. And they said, okay. And I said, well, think of like first of all, we're going to take the room as frame, all the experiences in the room, right? So you're sitting in a room and you've got, all these sights, all these sounds, this big volume. And let's hold that sort of evenly in the mind with eyes open as the frame of experience. Now think one of these really scary thoughts you've been having, right? Until you start to feel it in your body, but keep the room as frame. So you've got the sense of while you're thinking these thoughts and having these feelings, you want to notice how big and strong they are in the room, right? What percentage of your experience are those sensations? How strong are they actually? And they said, okay. And, they were like, and sort of starting to close their eyes. I said, no, eyes open, remember the room. And they were like, oh, okay. And I was like, do you have the thought? And they're like, yeah. And do you have the feeling? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, remember the room, right? And they're like, yeah, I can't do it. I can't make the fear stick. It's just disappearing. It's just disappearing. I can't do it right now with holding the room as frame. And I was like, yes.
Like,
right. Exactly. That's the point. That's the point, right? It doesn't work. You can't, because in order to exaggerate our feelings and emotions, we have to sort of do this thing where we activate what's called the default mode network. We activate something called the PCC in our brain, which is the posterior cingulate gyrus. And when we do that, the room kind of disappears for a second and our thoughts become super big and strong. Whereas if we were holding the room as frame with our PCC very deactivated, our thoughts are these wispy little things in the room. I mean, in comparison to like, physical sensations or colors or whatever, you can barely even find them, right? And so this is basically that just, the vast majority of the time, in other words. Yeah. So whereas most people's default mode network is to have thoughts and feelings be the predominant experience, and the room is there when they need to pay attention to it. They can take a whole shower or drive to work and not even remember any of it. You don't even know if you washed something because you weren't there, you weren't present. Well, if you train to really be present, you can flip over into this other way where it goes, wait a second, when just everything is sort of evenly perceived and thoughts are just these wispy little things, well, then the amount of trouble that all of that used to cause is vastly less. And so that's sort of one example that helps to explain what this experience is like. But in other ways, I'm just an ordinary dude, ordinary mammal, dude, hanging out, doing dishes, sweeping the dust bunnies off my floor.
So when you say that you hold the room as frame, as an example, that is your sort of your reality for the most part.
You're grounded.
That's the default, right? So as most people's default is what's called the default mode network, which is internal thoughts, worries, thoughts of past and future, ruminative thoughts. That's where their brain lives if you don't give them something else to do. Well, me, given nothing else to do, the room predominates and thoughts are these wispy little things in it.
Gotcha.
Cool. That's a bloody good way to describe it. Holy shit.
Yeah, I agree.
And they can still convey their message, right? So like, you know, and there might be a little feeling and there are little sensations here or whatever, or, you know, but it's what percent of experience, like this much, right? I mean, it's like, you know, what percentage is this little thing happening here, or these little sort of thoughts somewhere here? Like it's almost nothing. So they can convey their message, but they don't become exaggerated. And because they don't become exaggerated, there's not that like constantly re-triggering of all these, you know, adrenaline and cortisol and stress chemicals and stuff in the same way that used to happen before. I mean, what most people do with their emotions is like they may be just walking along in a safe place, but then they remember something that happened to them that was really bad, right? You know, and they get angry about it or something. And then those anger chemicals flood their body, and then they lose touch with the space they're in, and more thoughts come up that are angry. And then those thoughts re-trigger more angry chemicals, and then they get angrier. And then because they don't have this perspective, right? And then they just keep re-triggering the chemicals because the perspective is now lost, sort of amplified by the chemicals that are the angry chemicals or whatever, the angry pathways in the brain, or the desirous pathways, or the sad pathways or whatever. And so and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And somehow they think this is a good idea. It would almost be like a drunk person who realized they were drunk and then didn't like it, but they just kept drinking, you know, and they just keep slamming them back and getting drunker and, you know, and just more and more of these sort of things start flooding their brain, and they're losing more and more touch with perspective. And yet they just keep knocking them back, you know, and they're, you know, just like, whoa, man, like maybe, you know. And so it's nice to have a brain that has been trained to not do that. You know, it's not like, you know, like continued stimulation can't, you know, cause reactive chemicals. They do, but they're triggered by what's going on in the world in a way that is not like just, you know, sort of the world disappearing, thoughts becoming this huge thing, and then, you know, it's spinning like that. So, and that doesn't mean that I don't feel feelings or that I have perfect intelligence or clarity or anything like that, because I'm still a mammal, but it is much better. It's much better to not have that being caught and stuff be the default mode.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like, I while you're thinking of that, I was thinking about literally a thought I had today that for like a good hour, I was like, geez, I feel crap about that thought. I feel not so good about that. So no, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting insight that I guess I've been prodding Tom for that insight for ages, but of course he's not there yet, so he couldn't give me that insight, which is beautiful. Exactly. So it's you know, I think that was a perfect way to describe it. I actually, yeah, that clears a lot of questions up for me in terms of how that kind of works and how you're moving about your day-to-day life. It also clears questions up I had about just our interaction when we met each other, Daniel, like in terms of how you just move through space, you know, and how you exist. So
let me just jump in and say that conversation that you and I have, Bodhi, goes something like this. So you're progressing along the path of insight, right, Dad? Yeah, I am. Well, go ahead, levitate. Let's see it. Go ahead, prove it. So where do you go from there? And I mean, it's funny, but there is that perception. There is that perception out there, right? Of like, okay, well, you're enlightened, so that means you're a godly being, and you are able to, you have superpowers, right? So prove it, show us. And it's really tough to navigate through. The way you just explained that, Daniel, is a way to bring it to life on what it really is on a daily basis, as opposed to what it's been described at or promoted as, or in the moment. All right, so should we just go there then?
chugging through. We're loving doing this stuff for you guys. If you want to support us, if you want to make sure that we can keep getting, you know, better quality set, better quality lights, make the filming better.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Yes.
You know, all that kind of stuff. You can do that by just liking, following the page, and subscribing to the YouTube channel. That is what really makes a difference to us.